Matthew Henry's Commentary on the Whole Bible. 1 Chronicles 9. This chapter intimates to us that one end of recording all these genealogies was to direct the Jews, now that they had returned out of captivity, with whom to incorporate and where to reside, for here we have an account of those who first took possession of Jerusalem after their return from Babylon, and began the rebuilding of it upon the old foundation. 1. The Israelites, verses 2 to 9. 2. The priests, verses 10 to 13. 3. The Levites and other Nethinim, verses 14 to 26. 4. Here is the particular charge of some of the priests and Levites, verses 27 to 34. 5. A repetition of the genealogy of King Saul, verses 35 to 44. Genealogies, 700 BC. 1. So all Israel were reckoned by genealogies, and, behold, they were written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah, who were carried away to Babylon for their transgression. 2. Now the first inhabitants that dwelt in their possessions in their cities were the Israelites, the priests, Levites, and the Nethinims. 3. And in Jerusalem dwelt of the children of Judah, and of the children of Benjamin, and of the children of Ephraim, and Manasseh, Phoruthai the son of Ammihud, the son of Omri, the son of Imri, the son of Bani, of the children of Pharez the son of Judah. 5. And of the Shilonites, Asaiah the firstborn, and his sons. 6. And of the sons of Zerah, Joel, and their brethren, 690. 7. And of the sons of Benjamin, Salah the son of Meshullam, the son of Hodaviah, the son of Hazanuah, 8. And Ibniah the son of Jeraham, and Elah the son of Uzzi, the son of Michri, and Meshullam the son of Shephatiah, the son of Ruel, the son of Ibnijah, 9. And their brethren, according to their generations, 956. 6. All these men were chief of the fathers in the house of their fathers. 10. And of the priests, Jedaiah and Jehoiarib and Jachin, 11. And Azariah the son of Hilkiah, the son of Meshullam, the son of Zadok, the son of Meraioth, the son of Ahitub, the ruler of the house of God, 12. And Adiah the son of Jeraham, the son of Pashur, the son of Malchijah, and Masei the son of Adiel, the son of Jozerah, the son of Meshullam, the son of Meshillemith, the son of Immer, 13. And their brethren, heads of the house of their fathers, 1,760. Very able men for the work of the service of the house of God. The first verse looks back upon the foregoing genealogies, and tells us they were gathered out of the books of the kings of Israel and Judah, not that which we have in the canon of Scripture, but another civil record, which was authentic, as the king's books with us. Mentioning Israel and Judah, the historian takes notice of their being carried away to Babylon for their transgression. Let that judgment never be forgotten, but ever be remembered, for warning to posterity to take heed of those sins that brought it upon them. Whenever we speak of any calamity that has befallen us, it is good to add this: it was for my transgression, that God may be justified and clear when he judges. Then follows an account of the first inhabitants, after their return from captivity, that dwelt in their cities, especially in Jerusalem. 1. The Israelites. That general name is used, verse 2, because with those of Judah and Benjamin there were many of Ephraim and Manasseh, and the other 10 tribes, verse 3, such as had escaped to Judah when the body of the 10 tribes were carried captive or returned to Judah upon the revolutions in Assyria, and so went into captivity with them, or met them when they were in Babylon, associated with them, and so shared in the benefit of their enlargement. It was foretold that the children of Judah and of Israel should be gathered together and come up out of the land, Hosea 1 verse 11, and that they should be one nation again, Ezekiel 37 verse 22. Trouble drives those together that have been at variance, and the pieces of metal that had been separated will run together again when melted in the same crucible. Many both of Judah and Israel stayed behind in captivity, but some of both, whose spirit God stirred up, inquired the way to Zion again. Divers are here named, and many more numbered, who were chief of the fathers, verse 9, who ought to be remembered with honor, as Israelites indeed. 2. The priests, verse 10. It was their praise that they came with the first. Who should lead in a good work if the priests, the Lord's ministers, do not? It was the people's praise that they would not come without them, for who but the priests should keep knowledge? Who but the priests should bless them in the name of the Lord? 1. It is said of one of them that he was the ruler of the house of God, verse 11, not the chief ruler, for Joshua was then the high priest, but the Sagan, and the next under him, his deputy, who perhaps applied more diligently to the business than the high priest himself. In the house of God it is requisite that there be rulers, not to make new laws, but to take care that the laws of God be duly observed by priests as well as people. 2. It is said of many of them that they were very able men for the service of the house of God, verse 13. In the house of God there is service to be done, constant service, and it is well for the church when those are employed in that service who are qualified for it, able ministers of the New Testament, 2 Corinthians 3 verse 6. The service of the temple was such as required at all times, especially in this critical juncture, when they had newly come out of Babylon, great courage and vigor of mind, as well as strength of body, and therefore they are praised as mighty men of valor. Genealogies, the employment of the priests, 1400 BC. 14 And of the Levites, Shemaiah the son of Hashub, the son of Azrikam, the son of Hashabiah, of the sons of Merari, 15 And Bakbakkar, Haresh, and Galal, and Mattaniah the son of Micah, the son of Zichri, the son of Asaph, 16 And Obadiah the son of Shemaiah, the son of Galal, the son of Jeduthun, and Berechiah the son of Asa, the son of Elkanah, that dwelt in the villages of the Netophathites. 17 And the porters were Shallum, and Akub, and Talmon, and Ahiman, and their brethren. Shallum was the chief. 18 Who hitherto waited in the king's gate eastward, they were porters in the companies of the children of Levi. 19 And Shallum the son of Korah, the son of Ebiasaph, the son of Korah, and his brethren, of the house of his father, the Korahites, were over the work of the service, keepers of the gates of the tabernacle, and their fathers, being over the host of the Lord, were keepers of the entry. 20 And Phinehas the son of Eleazar was the ruler over them in time past, and the Lord was with him. 21 And Zechariah the son of Meshelemiah was porter of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. 22 All these which were chosen to be porters in the gates were 212. These were reckoned by their genealogy in their villages, whom David and Samuel the seer did ordain in their set office. 23 So they and their children had the oversight of the gates of the house of the Lord, namely, the house of the tabernacle, by wards. 24 In 4 quarters were the porters, toward the east, west, north, and south. 25 And their brethren, which were in their villages, were to come after 7 days from time to time with them. 26 For these Levites, the 4 chief porters, were in their set office, and were over the chambers and treasuries of the house of God. 27 And they lodged round about the house of God, because the charge was upon them, and the opening thereof every morning pertained to them. 28 And certain of them had the charge of the ministering vessels, that they should bring them in and out by tale. 29 Some of them also were appointed to oversee the vessels, and all the instruments of the sanctuary, and the fine flour, and the wine, and the oil, and the frankincense, and the spices. 30 And some of the sons of the priests made the ointment of the spices. 31 And Mattathiah, one of the Levites, who was the firstborn of Shallum the Korahite, had the set office over the things that were made in the pans. 32 And other of their brethren, of the sons of the Kohathites, were over the showbread, to prepare it every Sabbath. 33 And these are the singers, chief of the fathers of the Levites, who remaining in the chambers were free, for they were employed in that work day and night. 34 These chief fathers of the Levites were chief throughout their generations, these dwelt at Jerusalem. We have here a further account of the good posture which the affairs of religion were put into immediately upon the return of the people out of Babylon. They had smarted for their former neglect of ordinances, and under the late want of ordinances. Both these considerations made them very zealous and forward in setting up the worship of God among them, so they began their worship of God at the right end. Instances hereof we have here. 1. Before the house of the Lord was built they had the house of the tabernacle, a plain and movable tent, which they made use of in the meantime. Those that cannot yet reach to have a temple must not be without a tabernacle, but be thankful for that and make the best of it. Never let God's work be left undone for want of a place to do it in. 2. In allotting to the priests and Levites their respective employments, they had an eye to the model that was drawn up by David and Samuel the seer, verse 22. Samuel, in his time, had drawn the scheme of it, and laid the foundation, though the ark was then in obscurity, and David afterwards finished it, and both acted by immediate direction from God. Or David, as soon as he was anointed, had this matter in his mind and consulted Samuel about it, though he was then in his troubles, and the plan was formed in concert between them. This perhaps had been little regarded for many ages, but now, after a long interruption, it was revived. In dividing the work, they observed these ancient landmarks. 3. The most of them dwelt at Jerusalem, verse 34, yet there were some that dwelt in the villages, verses 16 and 22, because, it may be, there was not yet room for them in Jerusalem. However, they were employed in the service of the tabernacle, verse 25. They were to come after 7 days from time to time. They had their week's attendance in their turns. For many of the Levites were employed as porters at the gates of the house of God, for chief porters, verse 26, and, under them, others, to the number of 212, verse 22. They had the oversight of the gates, verse 23, were keepers of the thresholds, as in the margin, verse 19, and keepers of the entry. This seemed a mean office, and yet David would rather have it than dwell in the tents of wickedness, Psalm 84 verse 10. Their office was, 1. To open the doors of God's house every morning, verse 27, and shut them at night. 2. To keep off the unclean and hinder those from thrusting in that were forbidden by the law. 3. To direct and introduce into the courts of the Lord those that came thither to worship, and to show them where to go and what to do, that they might not incur punishment. This required care and diligence and constant attendance. Ministers have work to do of this kind. 5. Here is one Phinehas, a son of Eleazar, that is said to be a ruler over them in time past, verse 20, not the famous high priest of that name, but, as is supposed, an eminent Levite, of whom it is here said that the Lord was with him, or, as the Chaldee reads it, the word of the Lord was his helper, the eternal word, who is Jehovah, the mighty one on whom help is laid. 6. It is said of some of them that, because the charge was upon them, they lodged round about the house of God, verse 27. It is good for ministers to be near their work, that they may give themselves wholly to it. The Levites pitched about the tabernacle when they marched through the wilderness. Then they were porters in one sense, bearing the burdens of the sanctuary, now porters in another sense, attending the gates and the doors, in both instances keeping the charge of the sanctuary. 7. Every one knew his charge. Some were entrusted with the plate, the ministering vessels, to bring them in and out by tale, verse 28. Others were appointed to prepare the fine flour, wine, oil, etc., verse 29. Others, that were priests, made up the holy anointing oil, verse 30. Others took care of the meat offerings, verse 31. Others of the showbread, verse 32. As in other great houses, so in God's house, the work is likely to be done well when every one knows the duty of his place, and makes a business of it. God is the God of order, but that which is everybody's work will be nobody's work. 8. The singers were employed in that work day and night, verse 33. They were the chief fathers of the Levites that made a business of it, not mean singing men, that made a trade of it. They remained in the chambers of the temple, that they might closely and constantly attend it, and were therefore excused from all other services. It should seem, some companies were continually singing, at least at stated hours, both day and night. Thus was God continually praised, as it is fit he should be who was continually doing good. Thus devout people might, at any hour, have assistance in their devotion. Thus was the temple a figure of the heavenly one, where they rest not day nor night from praising God, Revelation 4 verse 8. Blessed are those that dwell in thy house, they will be still praising thee. Genealogies, 1400 BC. 35. And in Gibeon dwelt the father of Gibeon, Jehiel, whose wife's name was Maachah, 36. And his firstborn son Abdon, then Zur and Kish and Baal, and Nadab, 37. And Gedor, and Ahio, and Zechariah, and Mikloth. 38. And Mikloth begot Shimim. And they also dwelt with their brethren at Jerusalem, over against their brethren. 39. And Neb begot Kish, and Kish begot Saul, and Saul begot Jonathan, and Malchishua, and Abinadab, and Eshbal. 40. And the son of Jonathan was Meribal, and Meribal begot Micah. 41. And the sons of Micah were Pithon, and Melech, and Tariah, and Ahaz. 42. And Ahaz begot Jerah, and Jerah begot Almeth, and Asmaveth, and Zimri. and Zimri begot Moza. 43 And Moza begot Bineah, and Rephaiah his son, Elisa his son, Azel his son. 44 And Azel had 6 sons, whose names are these: Azrikam, Bocheru, and Ishmael, and Sheariah, and Obadiah, and Hanan. These were the sons of Azel. These verses are the very same with chapter 8 verses 29 to 38, giving an account of the ancestors of Saul, and the posterity of Jonathan. There it is, the conclusion of the genealogy of Benjamin. Here it is, an introduction to the story of Saul. We take the repetition as we find it, but if we admit that there are in the originals, especially in these books, some errors of the transcribers, I should be tempted to think this repetition arose from a blunder. Someone, in copying out these genealogies, having written those words, verse 34, these dwelt in Jerusalem, cast his eye on the same words, chapter 8 verse 28. These dwelt in Jerusalem, and so went on with what followed there, instead of going on with what followed here, and, when he perceived his mistake, was loath to make a blot in his book, and so let it stand. We have a rule in our law: redundans non nocet, redundancies do no harm.